Good day. Welcome to The Leader's Edge, and today it's Season 10, Episode 4. We have a guest who's going to be thought provoking for us, Adrian Tabalanza, and he comes to us with a topic called How to Overcome Porn Addiction. Adrian?
Hello, people or audience of Leader's Edge. Yes, it's my pleasure to be invited by uh, distinguished Toastmaster Dino Santos. I'm Joan Adrian Tabalanza. That's my full name. If you're wondering why Joan, because I used to be a fairy godmother, and now I'm just a goddess. Thank you very much. So I will be talking about overcoming porn addiction, as mentioned, and well, let's just start with this. This is my very first book. I co-authored this with a person named Amelia Pagdanganan, and she's also she was a guest here before. And we collaborated because I contacted her because I was suffering from mental torture. Life was easy, life was going fine, but for some reason, I was not enjoying it. So there's something missing. And I talked to Amelia Pagdanganan. I call her my ally.
Mm,
I talked to her and then I told her, "Can you help me with what's going on? I feel that I don't feel happy with what's happening." So,
mm,
and then she gave me a short quiz, and then she found out that I may be suffering from porn addiction, and that's
mm.
how our collaboration started.
Yeah, I'd like to validate what Adrian just said. Amelia was one of our guests in the previous season, and I had the unique privilege of interviewing her for that particular episode. And I leave a link up here in a card so that you could click on it and watch it as well. And Adrian, you were saying that Amelia was able to diagnose your condition,
Hmm.
um, and I think this is because Amelia did undergo certification and training to be able to help people with their struggles. She
Hmm.
also came out with a book. If I recall, the title of that was "Sino ang
Dakila,
Dakila Sino ang
tunay
Tunay na
na baliw.
Baliw." Yeah, beautiful title, by the way. It's because it reminded me of a song
Yeah.
until I read it.
Hmm.
Then when I read it, it just blew my mind.
Hmm.
Uh, she has a very interesting life and a very interesting story, which is
Yeah.
why I decided to invite you tonight because, ladies and gentlemen, Adrienne has overcome a problem that far too many people are suffering from this. Today, we're going to hear a testimony. Take us to the beginning. What was your life like? I mean, was it always difficult? When did your depression begin?
Okay. It's quite hard to pinpoint exactly when my depression began, but I suspect it began when my father died in 2014.
Oh, I'm
Right.
sorry to hear that.
No, no worries, sir. I think that's uh more than what, 5 years or so. Anyway,
Mm,
I was a graduate student at the University of the Philippines then,
mm,
and I was struggling with my study. I would always get incomplete grades because I guess I was not ready for the coursework, but I was
mm.
pushing myself. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just reacting because part of me now, as I was listening to you, was wondering, did your father have a big influence in your life?
Hmm.
Did his passing affect you enormously?
I would say yes. It really affected me um, because I connected. his death to my failure to finish my master's degree.
Okay. Was your pursuit of the master's degree
Mhm.
something that he wanted you to do, or was it something that you wanted to do?
Well, we never really talked about it at length, but he knew I was really into studying. My
Okay.
yeah,
Mm,
my parents knew I was really into studying,
mm,
and even though I should have been earning money already, but I was just pushing myself to finish the master's degree because I know that I would have a much better future if I have that degree.
mm,
But I was really suffering financially then. I didn't have money of my own. I was still depending on my parents.
mm.
I was already what, in my mid-20s then.
Okay.
So at the back of my head, I was thinking, I was conflicted.
Mm,
I really wanted to finish it, but somehow I also wanted to, uh, you know, put food on the table for my parents so that they can also be proud of me.
mm,
So there's there was this constant struggle in my head.
mm,
So my father died, and then I was already thinking, should I continue my master? Should I
mm,
just work and provide money? Um, I pushed myself to keep on studying, but then my grades were really not that good,
okay.
and then there's this one subject which I got incomplete because I did not submit
Mm,
requirements. And then I think
okay.
that's the uh, final blow that broke the camel's back, so to
Mm.
speak. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I decided because then I was keep on pushing myself, right? So this statistical subject and
Mm,
research, I really couldn't understand the concept, but I was just pushing myself. Um, what's happening was I isolated myself. I was not talking to people.
mm,
I was just focusing on writing. And imagine writing in facing your computer, but you're just writing. You don't understand what you're writing. You just keep on
mm.
typing and typing and typing. So that's
Okay.
what's happening to me. And I thought that's okay, that's productive. But
Mm,
at the end of the day, I didn't get the result that I wanted, and it made me feel like a failure.
mm,
Let me just tie it back to porn addiction. So during those times when I was torturing myself, the
mm,
only like the outlet for me was to watch porn and to masturbate.
mm, mm,
And so I just kept on doing that. So like let's say every 2 hours of writing without
mm,
direction, I would watch porn. I would
mm,
masturbate
mm.
just to give me some sense of reward. Yeah,
Understood. I think in physiology they call that oxytocin,
I guess
which
so.
is the cuddle hormone, or the hormone responsible for feeling good after
Mm,
sex, and your relative isolation.
yeah,
So you had opportunity, you had motive, and my guess is you didn't really have people who were there
mm,
close to you, or providing support, so you became addicted to this. um just out of curiosity, how did the porn addiction start?
okay. Let me make it clear. Because in the book, I argued that nobody really officially diagnosed me with
Mm,
porn addiction. But based on the manifestations or the symptoms, you are an addict if your
um,
normal functioning, um, is out the window. Like
mm,
you cannot go to work without doing it. You
mm,
cannot eat without doing it. Every time you think of it, every time
mm,
you think of porn and doing it, and even, for example, if you're a teacher, you think of your students as, your next partner. If you're a
mm,
student, you think of your teacher as your next partner. So
mm,
you imagine all these things, and
mm,
your emotion. Uh, we all have the negative emotions. In my case, I got really irritated at the slightest instance. So, for example, when my sister didn't hear me, I would automatically shout at her. Yeah,
Wow.
just
Mm,
because she didn't hear me, and then
mm,
we would start a fight. So
mm,
my little sister was with us then,
mm,
and we're the ones who were always together. We lived in another house before,
mm,
and so we would always see each other. And if she didn't hear me, I would always shout at her and tell her
mm.
all these nasty things.
How did your family react? I mean, I'm sure they eventually found out. It probably came to that point. How did they react? Were they shocked? Were they angry? Were they supportive? And then how did that make you feel?
Okay, that's a tricky question. We never really talked about my porn addiction. I think that we Filipinos, we don't talk about these things in the
Yeah,
open.
true enough. True enough. Yeah.
um, so even now, my mother is not the kind of person who would confront me and we would have a lengthy talk about my porn addiction. She's not like that. Maybe
Mm,
she's not trained to do that. So
mm,
I just wrote my experience.
mm,
Um, and then I gave my mom a copy of it, and then she was reading the first chapter, and she's laughing. But she told me, "Why did you expose our dirty laundry to the public?" Because in the first chapter, I talked about how my curiosity to
mm,
sex
mm,
began. So when I saw them, my mom and dad having sex, and
mm,
so that's when my curiosity began.
mm,
And so I gave her the copy, and then but then later on, she just probably ignored that or
mm,
accepted my version.
mm. My big question now is, faced with this struggle, what was your first glimmer of hope? Who reached out to you first? Or did you reach out to them? I mean, how did you keep yourself from drowning in this? Because I can just imagine it must have been surreal for you.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I need to give you like a backstory. Okay. I was working in Dubai, or I was working. I found a job in Abu Dhabi actually. So
Mm-mm.
it's a really good job. I earned a lot of money, and then after one year and 4 months, I went to the UK.
Oh.
Yeah, I went there to attend an advanced teacher training course,
Mm,
which was accredited by the University of Cambridge. So to
mm-mm.
me, wow, that sounds really really nice.
Mm-mm.
And luckily, uh, my younger sister also lives there in the UK with her husband, and so I saw the opportunity to be there, to study there, and hopefully find work there.
Mm,
So those were my hopes,
mm,
and so I went there. I paid a lot of money,
mm.
right? About 135,000 pesos,
Wow.
about
Okay.
2 grand there. And so, but what happened was, it's supposed to be for 1 month.
Mm,
What happened was, in the first 3 days, I already felt like a failure because I constantly compared myself with the rest of my classmates.
mm,
They're Europeans and they seem to be doing fine while I was feeling really low. And
mm,
so I felt really inferior. And
mm,
that's when my depression um, got really more intense, I guess.
mm, mm,
I couldn't concentrate anymore.
mm,
even though even though somebody's talking to me, I couldn't understand what they're saying.
Mm.
And when when it's about time to go back home, I would always wish that somebody or that a car would hit me.
Wow.
That
It
that
got that
the
bad.
that the ground would just open up and
And
swallow
swallow
me.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. So it got that bad.
Yeah.
And so when you were at the very lowest point in your life, because that sounds like you'd hit rock bottom
Mm.
right there. How did you start to climb your way back up? What happened?
What happened was, I guess my previous training, my previous experiences, like when I was a volunteer at a Buddhist monastery, uh, what
Mm.
they taught me about the ego, the non-attachment,
Mm.
stuck with me. And then, um, thankfully, the healthcare system in the UK is very, very good. I didn't have to pay anything.
Wow.
I contacted the health mental health providers there, and they
Mm.
gave me cognitive behavioral therapy sessions.
Mm.
And I was diligent to attend. And then they told me to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Mm.
And then I found out that I had a mild clinical depression.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so it was confirmed. Okay. So there's a confirmation. And so they told me you cannot fly back home if you do not attend all these CBT sessions.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
airlines have this
correct.
rule. Yeah,
I might
yeah,
be a
yeah.
danger to other
Mm.
passengers. So
That's right.
yeah,
Mm.
so they told me you have to attend first. Okay, and so I attended. Luckily, after a few weeks, I got better. I could recognize how my emotions were hijacking my executive functioning. And so I learned a few tricks along the way. And what's really stood out was the support system that I had. And you really have to seek help from people you trust, people who really care about you. And that's how I climb my way back to paradise.
So you were at this point where you were asked to see clinical psychologists,
Mhm,
and you had to get certified to be able to travel to
mhm.
leave the country. Would you say that you were close to being suicidal at that point in your life?
I was very suicidal, actually. In fact, I would always call the Good Samaritan. It's in the UK. It's like uh, a helpline
Mm.
for suicidal people. I would always call them, and I would always tell them what's happening with me, even though
Mm.
our call usually would last about 30 to 1 hour, and
Wow.
I would just keep on crying and crying.
Mm.
If I'm not sure, Sardina, if you've experienced depression.
Mm.
I couldn't even describe it. It's like all blank, like gray, hopeless,
Mm.
and you just want to end. You just want to not exist. That's it.
Well, that bad. And for this to happen in a country where you're not the first class citizen, as
Mm,
it were, must have added more to it, because here, if you felt depressed, you could go to places like Malate
mm-hmm,
and go to a comedy bar,
mm-hmm,
have a
yeah.
few drinks, laugh the night away, and then at say 3 a.m. crawl into bed, and it's over, right?
Mm.
But out there, how did you have fun? How did you uh, chill or relax? What were the resources available to you, or were there?
How did I? Well, my brother-in-law and my sister tried to help out by inviting me to go to the pub.
Mm.
Um, have a drink, and then watch a show, watch a band. So we did that, but still I wasn't there. My mind wasn't there. I was just there because, because of their kindness.
Mm.
I didn't want to disappoint them further, but
Yeah.
I wasn't really enjoying it.
Mm. So at this point, what you're saying is that your desire for human company
Mm,
was very minimal,
mm,
and you found more comfort in front of a laptop monitor,
yeah.
and the act of pleasuring yourself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. I'm not sure if I should tell it here, but maybe I should be on. I should share it. Um, I was very promiscuous.
okay.
Because I've been addicted to porn. Of course, I wanted to act on what I was
Mm,
watching, and so
mm,
I would go on Grinder, which is a gay app. I would
mm,
hook up with male,
mm,
uh, with partners, would have sex,
mm,
and and that satisfied me uh, temporarily, but still the happiness was not
mm.
complete. It was superficial.
Oh, okay.
Um, so there you go. It didn't really help me in the long run.
Mm, mm, mm. And it's a minor miracle that you didn't catch anything from your partners. I mean, in an age of AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases, uh, that was an enormous risk on your part.
I don't know if I should tell you this, but I caught.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It contributed to my depression.
Yes, because now you knew that you had to get rid of that. Take the meds for it, and
Sorry. I
no, no,
think
it's okay.
Lola K, I didn't even tell this to Lola K. You just
Mm,
because I don't want your audience to have the impression that I didn't catch because I really caught.
mm.
I just want to be honest.
It, I've learned throughout all 10 seasons of The Leader's Edge to not be judgmental, to accept people for who they are. Please don't worry that uh, I will be judging you, nor will our audience be doing that. They're just genuinely curious, as I am, about how you went through what you went
Mhm,
through, and then what the consequences were, because every action we do, there always tends to be a
mhm.
consequence. And so let's continue. So there was this, you were at this point where you were depressed and then doubly depressed because you got
Yes.
sick.
Yes.
My guess is you ultimately got well. I mean, when you saw the doctors, they
Mhm,
prescribed this, medication, and so um, you got better. um, you also talked about some of the disciplines that you learn from the Buddhists. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because somewhere in there lies the kernel of how you pulled yourself out from this downward spiral.
mhm. Right. I included that in the book. One of the techniques that I used
Mm,
was to change my mindset about
okay.
things. So
Mm-mm.
this one one breath at a time, one step at a time
Mm,
attitude. Because I'm the kind of person who would always want to achieve things.
mm-mm. Yeah.
Um, like I always want to be recognized.
Mm,
Um, if you want to, if you want me to do something, you always need to praise me. You always
mm,
have to tell me, "Oh, you're doing very good." So that's that's that would motivate me to follow you.
mm,
So that's the kind
mm-mm.
of person I am.
In other words, you
Mhm.
had this need to be needed.
Right, right,
Mm,
right. So so let's go back to one breath, one step at a time.
Mm-mm.
I learned that to achieve my dreams, because I failed a lot. I failed
Mm-mm.
my, my goal in the UK, and in UP I failed my goal. I learned to just focus on this day. I know
Mm.
you have a goal. Don't look too far ahead.
Mm.
Just focus today. What are the steps you need to do today? That's
And
it.
that's where the
And that
one
works
breath,
wonder for
yeah.
me.
Mm-mm.
And when I came back here in September 2019,
Mm-mm.
um, I decided to just get up, do things,
Mm-mm.
and prepare for my future. I
Mm-mm.
couldn't do anything about the past,
Mm-mm.
and so I enrolled at Philippine Norma University for as my second attempt at the master's degree. So, during that time I also decided to review for the licensure exam for teachers.
Cool.
And so yeah,
Okay.
so those were my plans, and I just treated them one day at a time. And then
Mm-mm.
luckily I survived. I even placed top 8 in the exam, and so that
Wow.
worked wonder for me.
I'm sure that did a lot as well to your self-esteem,
Correct.
the sense of achievement
Yeah.
that if I can do this, I can do other things.
Yeah.
Hmm. So do go on. So you took up further studies
Mm,
and you got your certification.
mm.
Um, did that allow you to build on? In other words, to build on more confidence, less depression. So you were now climbing upwards. Um, what happened then?
Yes, on top of that, Sir Dino, I joined again Toastmasters. I have to mention
Wonderful.
Toastmasters, really very
Mm.
instrumental in the healing process, because
Okay.
without Toastmasters I wouldn't be able to express myself.
Yes.
And I really needed a venue where I could express what I was feeling about my depression.
Mm.
And to me it's a therapy. I would always tell that to uh my my the members of the Toastmasters clubs where I first belong. It's the Toastmasters Club. I told them I would be joining them because I was depressed. I needed a venue to just express myself, build my confidence again.
Mm.
And so they accepted me. Then after that, I found much nearer Toastmasters Club, which is a mystic culture,
Mm.
where Lola Kwentosera, Amelia Pagdanganan is a member. And so we met there. And then
Mm.
that's where our love story began.
Mm. Mm.
And so Toastmasters, very instrumental in the healing process, and also my graduate study at PNU, my review for the LET, all these things I could see concrete progress,
Mm.
and that's crucial to the change in my mindset, because
Mm.
I could see myself growing again. I was not
Ah.
thinking of my depressed self anymore.
Mm. Mm. So, in other words, you were benefiting from things like a new treasure chest of
Yeah,
hormones, such as dopamine,
yeah.
which is known as the anticipation hormone,
Mm,
looking forward to attending a weekly meeting, being among your friends again. And then this time, with the pandemic kind of under
mm,
control, so we're having hybrid meetings, some of them live. When
mm,
you meet your friends, especially when you see Amelia, and I'm sure you probably would like to hug her. So
mm,
that's still
mm.
oxytocin, but in a safer form. And many other wonderful hormones like serotonin. So now, I'm not going to turn this into a purely psychological thing, but what I'm saying is that for our viewers and especially for you, Adrian, you've just proven one thing, that Toastmasters isn't just for better speaking, better thinking, better listening.
Mm.
but it can also save a life.
Correct.
It can
Yes.
also save a person's self-esteem.
True.
Wow. So I, the,
Sorry, I'm tearing up. It's true. It's really true.
mm,
It really
it's all right. It's all right,
it
Adrian.
really helped me. So
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
No, no, nothing to be sorry about. It's okay. You know, I am sure that if more Toastmasters were as brave as you, they'd be joining us in this episode as a panel, talking about it, really just expressing how they've had all these struggles, all this pain with no outlet. And so they end up doing terrible things to themselves. In your case, one could say that the Lord was merciful because it was simply through porn and some episodes of partners, the need to be able to be accepted, to have people listen to you. And it's wonderful that you wrote a book about it, because now you have the opportunity to pay back, as it were, for all the help that you got from your friends at Mystic Toastmasters, Amelia, who listened to you. And it's wonderful because I can see that you both collaborated on this book. Was she like somebody who understood the pain that you went through, and did you find like a kindred spirit in
Yeah,
her?
I did find a kindred spirit in
Mm.
her. She told me her story. I think her story was much grimmer than my story.
Yes.
You know. So I resonated with her, and I thought I could trust her
Mm.
with my story. And so
Mm-mm.
I reached out to her, and then
Mm-mm.
I think she's praying for an author, a
Mm-mm.
partner who would um, whom she could collaborate with
Mm-mm.
about this porn addiction or
Mm-mm.
pornography, and
Mm-mm.
she couldn't find one, and until we met, until I reached
Mm-mm.
out to her and I told her my problem with porn addiction and my depression,
Mm-mm.
and so she just gave me things to answer. I was diligent in answering, and then she kind of diagnosed me as having porn addiction. Of course,
Mm.
we had some arguments about that, back and forth, but based on the descriptions and symptoms, then I I kind of agreed that I may be suffering from
Mm.
porn addiction, and so I just wrote everything down. She told me to write everything down. We had this Google Google Drive where we would
Mm-mm.
write, and
Mm.
then that's how the book came about.
Oh, okay. So, um, before we begin to talk about your book and how it can help others overcome their own porn addiction, um, let me just um, let me just say that Amelia, you, and possibly many other Toastmasters, many other people with a sense of brokenness inside,
Hmm.
walk around looking like they're normal people, looking like
Hmm.
they're okay, and yet they're walking wounded, who
Hmm.
have not learned to acknowledge their pain, their depression, their suffering. And unless this is confronted and dealt with in a mature manner, very terrible consequences could arise out of it. Like, for example, they might try to end their lives, or
Yeah.
they might take it out on other people. I imagine some of the cases of road rage that we see
Hmm.
around is because of this unexplored and unexpressed pain
Hmm.
that they have in their lives.
Yeah.
Um, and this pandemic, I'm sure, has brought its own tsunami of anxiety, stress, and pain. And I hope that your book, though it talks about porn addiction, also has some principles that might help people deal with their other kinds of addiction. Because, as you said, it started with the mindset. the right mindset. So tell us more about how does the book help people um, step by step overcome this form of addiction.
Right. So right off the bat, I would say don't read the book in one sitting. You really need to
Okay.
digest it chapter by chapter.
Mm,
So uh, our intention is for you to read the book in 1 month. So
mm,
read one chapter a day, contemplate, do the exercises because you want it to be really experiential for you.
mm,
Don't just read the book and then leave it. Don't do anything
mm,
about it. Engage with the book, with the ideas
mm,
that we put forward.
mm,
Um, if you do it, I cannot promise that your life will totally change, but at least the porn addiction part might be resolved. So, for
mm,
example, um, we have a lot of triggers for porn addicts. We have a lot of triggers. We
mm,
talked about in the book blast, boredom. Okay, uh, sorry, boredom. So if you're feeling bored, more likely you will masturbate. You will watch porn. If oh, okay, forgot the L. The A if you're angry. Okay. Yes, if you're angry. Uh, and then the T is if you're tired. So like these negative emotions, if you experience them, would likely lead you to watch something satisfying, which is porn. And then next to the watching is, of course, masturbation, and then so on and so forth. So there is what we call the causal link from the thought or from the feeling towards the action. So we try to unlock or we try to analyze these things for you objectively, so that you can be prepared and you can have the right the right skill set to also know and diagnose yourself that you're doing this because there's a link between your thought, your emotion, and your action. Now, if you can master this aspect, more likely
mm.
your porn addiction um, will 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 um, will weaken.
Okay. So just to be clear about this, what you're saying, Adrian, is that the book is really contributory. In other words, it's still a matter of the will for
Mhm,
the reader. The reader will go through the pages and then
mhm,
go chapter by chapter. And if the desire is there to stop, to be able to get things under control, then the book will give them the guide to do that. So just wondering, how long have you been free of this particular addiction?
I've been sober since August 20 last year. So today is what, August 31? It's been more than a year.
Congratulations. Wow. Okay. So now that you are for a year, you've been freed from it. Um, what has replaced it instead?
Right. So here's the tricky part, I can understand, maybe I know what you're thinking. It's not easy.
Mm,
I guess you try to do it. You try to prevent yourself from watching porn for the first 3 days, and then after the third day, you would watch again, masturbate again. It's okay. Be kind to yourself in the process.
mm,
If you slide back, try again.
mm,
Um, the thing is, don't ever tell yourself that you're stupid, that you're not
mm,
good enough. That's why you're failing. No, that's not the point of the book.
mm,
The book tells you to love yourself more. Love
mm,
your failures. If you really want to stop it, um, try again, one step at a time. Okay, until
mm,
you prolong. Okay, until you prolong. Uh, your ability not to watch porn.
mm,
So I think that's my That's my message to those who would like
mm,
to
mm,
uh, to detoxify themselves.
mm,
To You will fail. That's expected.
mm,
Okay, you will fail, but it's if you learn to do it just one step at a time, right?
mm,
Okay. For example, you failed in the fifth day. What are
mm.
you going to do about it? You
Ah,
will what? You will stop writing in your gratitude journal?
mm,
No. Continue. Just continue. You write
mm,
everything there. I failed because I watched this. And then
mm,
once you're much better, read your gratitude journal, see what's happening. Why
mm,
so maybe what you need to do is avoid a certain place or a certain show on TV.
mm,
And then replace that, go to the gym or
mm,
walk for 1 hour
mm,
or play with your cats, with your dogs. So there
mm.
are ways you can actually help yourself if you just pay attention.
Right. There are parallels to what you're describing to how other people get over other forms of addiction. Like I have a very close friend who's struggling with nicotine,
Mm,
because he was a 2 pack a day
mm,
smoker, and he knew that it was wrong. And he said the only upside to smoking and being addicted to nicotine is I definitely know what I will die from,
mhm,
you know. But then even as he was kidding about it, he also realized that he needed to be around to watch his children grow so that he
mm,
wouldn't leave behind a widow.
mm,
And so yeah, he had this mindset that I will. He didn't do it cold turkey. He just
mm,
couldn't. So like you were describing, fifth day fail and then just move on, continue. So he just diminished the number of sticks per day that he was
mm,
going through until finally he overcame it.
mhm.
um but it's funny, there's always, as you said, the trigger,
Yeah.
because when he met somebody who was also a smoker who was also trying to overcome it,
Mhm.
and then the two of them sat together and they both got bored, as you pointed out. And they saw this vendor,
uh,
with the wooden noise maker,
uh,
and the sound, he said the sound was a trigger. It made me call him over, and his intention
mhm.
was to buy stork, the
Okay.
menthol candy.
Yeah.
So instead of smoking, he'd do the stork.
Mm,
But his friend, oh, had no self-control. When the cigarette vendor arrived, he my friend bought stork, he bought hope.
wow.
And so he began to smoke, and so as he was smoking, of course my friend smelled
Mm,
the tobacco smoke,
mm,
and
mm.
then he said, pahitit naman. So, and then before you know it, the two of them were smoking again.
Right.
So he said, I've failed so many times, but the key is to always get up and then try again. Try
Mhm,
again.
mm,
And so to this day, he's still alive.
mhm.
He has a job and he's relatively healthy. He used to teach karate. He has a black belt and he's a teacher,
Mm,
but he had to stop because the smoking greatly reduced his stamina.
okay.
Meaning, he couldn't keep up
Because of
with
the
the,
lungs, yeah.
yeah, the long teaching session. So what does the future look like for you, Adrian? Tell us, from your heart. Now that you have overcome it for a year,
Mhm.
so happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
um, there is no doubt in my mind that as the months, as the years go through, being human, you would probably from time to time uh, stumble now and then. But do you feel that you have now developed enough mental strength to recognize what you're going through for what it is, and reassert once more that mindset that allows you to keep the demons under control?
Mm, okay. Well, about the future, I'm just happy that I would say I have mastery of the thought, at
Mm-mm,
least in terms of porn.
mm-mm,
Um, how should I describe it? Because I'm very curious as to um, I'm curious whether I would be able to master my porn addiction or regulate or control it. And I think I was interested in the possibility of having control over my my habits, and I could relate that to the monks
Mm.
who would who would, who would not practice sex.
Mm.
And so I was thinking, maybe that's the secret to having a sharp mind or having this deep sense of understanding of the world.
Mm.
If you can control the very basic foundation of human functioning, like how does habit uh, form? Like how does an action arise out of your consciousness,
Mm.
and how does your emotion connect to that? So it's all playing in my consciousness. I'm sorry if
Mm.
I'm describing it to you in abstract sense, but um, that's what I'm thinking. So if I can control this, maybe I can control other parts of my life.
Mm.
And so I think I found something very helpful to me and to others. You can control, or you have a certain control of your life. Um, if you want to reach a goal, achieve your a dream, it's not easy, but
Mm.
there are ways to achieve them.
Mm.
All you need is to really know the steps, find the right people to guide you, and just do it one step, one day at a time.
Mm.
And then you will not be frustrated.
Mm.
You will not you will not be overburdened by, this big goal that's too far ahead, but you just do the tasks gradually.
Mm.
And to me that's the key. Not just in overcoming porn addiction, but if you in other domains of your life.
Mm. It sounds to me, Adrian, like you might you might actually turn out to be a good podcaster or a radio personality who could reach out to people so they'd call you,
mm,
and you'd have conversations on the air, and you could counsel them. Because you know what, I always say that only somebody who used to be an alcoholic,
mm,
emphasis on the past tense, used to be, would be taken seriously by
mm,
somebody who is currently struggling with alcoholism, because that person would have earned the right to talk
yeah,
about it. And so uh, your ability to have overcome your own struggle makes you a very powerful voice that others need to hear, that others need to learn from. And the book is a good start for that. But I'd encourage you to get in touch with one of our other guests in the past. That's PJ Neri,
mm,
who is an expert on how to do podcasts, so
okay.
that you could have a wider audience who might benefit from the tips
Mm,
and the book that you're trying to share with the world. Um, Guys, this isn't just something that is an isolated case with Adrian. uh, for sure there are so many out there who are struggling with this right now, and if they're listening to this, they're resonating with the struggle, with the pain that Adrian felt. So Adrian, how do people reach you if they want to say, um, talk to you, write to you, or maybe ask for advice?
mm.
Where would they find you?
Okay, well, they can reach to me through my email. We set up an email where they can inquire about their addiction to porn, It's
Mm.
called Surviving Porn Addiction at
Mm.
gmail.com. You can also reach me in my personal FB. So that's just look up Adrian Tabalanza, the
Mm.
one wearing a cap.
Oh, okay.
So that's it. Just reach me there, and yeah, I reply
Mm.
um, quickly most of the time.
Mm-mm. So, Adrian, just for the clarity of our viewers, you're not trained counselor, as it were,
Yes,
but you're coming from a person who struggled with it and has learned to overcome it. Okay, so
that's right.
to all of you listening out there, if you, for example, you're thinking, oh, it'd be good to have a support group,
Mm,
like maybe people who meet on Zoom,
yeah.
and if there is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, then there could be this kind of group, Porn Addiction Anonymous, where
Mm,
they could all gather together and you could facilitate the discussion so that
yeah.
they could learn. They could get a copy of your book first,
Yeah.
then they could invite you to that meeting. You'd be the facilitator and the moderator, and one step at a time help them overcome this particular pain. um, so wow, any final words for our viewers, Adrian, especially those who probably can't even talk about this?
Mm. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you're suffering still from porn addiction, um, I would say hang in there, buddy. Okay,
Mm,
it's all right. It's not the end of the world for you. There's always hope. Always reach out to people you can trust. Find a really uh, good ally who would understand you, listen to you
mm,
non-judgmentally, and
mm,
then find it in your heart to do the exercises. You don't need to do everything. Just do the things that you can, and just
mm,
commit to an action.
mm,
Okay, start with the simplest. Well, for example, just writing, having a gratitude journal that really helped me a lot. It changed my thinking because before before I was bombarded with negative emotions, negative thoughts. But when I started writing my gratitude journal, even the simplest thing I would be thankful for, like
mm,
the sofa that I'm sitting on or sleeping on. I'm thankful to that. So the
mm,
mundane things, you can appreciate mundane things by
mm,
having a gratitude journal. So do the simplest things first. Okay, don't be harsh on yourself. Be kind
mm,
to yourself during the process of change. And yeah, you can reach us. It's in the works already.
mm,
We're planning to have a community of porn addicts and soon to be uh, former porn addicts.
mm.
We are planning to do that with my co-author Amelia Pagdanganan, and yeah, just reach out to us. Lola Kwentosera, Amelia Pagdanganan's website is lolakwentosera.com, so you can check that out also. And that's it. And I'm just so happy. Thank you for the invite, Sir Dino.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I get to share my story. And I hope that your audience learns from the things I said.
You're very welcome, Adrian. And in behalf of my co-hosts here in the Leader's Edge, we'd like to say that it's a privilege to have heard your story, and because it's so encouraging, uh, giving hope to those who might feel hopeless or lost. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming up soon in episode number 5, we're going to have uh, a previous guest. That's Pags Corpus, our cybersecurity expert. And if you learned something from this episode, do click on the like, share, and subscribe button. That would be marvelous. And as ever, I'd like to say that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.